Where once meerkats roamed, some rabbits now call home. Borth Zoo, which can no longer call itself a zoo as it lost its licence, has seen some changes. Gone are the lions, the lynx and the monkeys, while guinea pigs, ducks and turkeys have moved in after Borth Wild Animal Kingdom lost its zoo licence when it was wound up after an insolvency hearing in London in February 2021. That was 8 months after Fieldsports News visited.
Basically, without a zoo licence, we had no way of... we can only open 6 times a year to display our exotic animals. The rest of the time, we can only display domestic animals, which is farm animals and domestic pets, basically. But they're not necessarily things that people like. We've got a lot of snakes that people keep as pets and things, but they're exotic, so they're not classed as domestic. So it really has to be just domestic animals. I mean, we've got a duck that is an exotic duck. It is actually just a little brown duck, but anyway, it's an exotic duck. So she has to be off display because she's not a domestic duck.
The zoo needs to apply for a new licence, which means inspections, etc., and would cost about £5,000, far above the Tweedies' budget in the middle of the coronavirus lockdown. Instead, they spent the money on rebuilding things like the reptile house with the plan to get the animals back. Some were sent to other zoos, including Port Lympne in Kent, where Prime Minister Boris Johnson's wife Carrie is public relations manager.
The lions went first because what happened was the council took us to court before we went bankrupt. The council took us to court to remove our Category 1 animals on the grounds that we didn't have the correct firearms provision in place. Because we've tried since the day we moved here to get a firearms team in place. The Secretary of State Standards, which is for England, it says that you have to have firearms provision for all Category 1 animals. So that means the monkeys, the snake that we had, which is kind of ridiculous, you want to shoot a snake. But obviously the council were using that, although at the same time saying we needed to follow the Welsh standards. Now on the Welsh standards, it said we only need firearms provision for Category 1 felines, just like the lynx and the lions. We argued it in court and obviously we won. So it wasn't because they wanted us to get rid of the monkeys and everything else as well. And it was only the lions that had to go. So, we kind of wasn't happy, but it was what it was. So we moved them to Port Lympne. But then obviously during that time as well, then we went into the bankruptcy. And so the council were very quick to then make us move the monkeys. The council clearly didn't want us to have Category 1 animals here, as plain as day.
Animals described as wolf dogs are about the wildest in the place, which mainly seems home to different types of duck. Still, visitors aren't complaining. For Tracy Tweedy and her employees at the Animalarium, as it's now called, the worst seems to be over. She's come a long way since she threatened to kill her animals rather than give them up.
I'm hoping next summer we will be able to look at reapplying, but obviously there's still quite a lot of work to do. And then we can get things like the lemurs back because they're on loan to another collection and we can get them back as soon as we're licensed to have them.